What is up, y'all? Kevin Kuhn here from Athlete Factors. New shirts. I'm excited about it. This is the Athlete Factors podcast. My guest today is cross-country coach Tom Rapp. How are we doing tonight, sir?
I'm great. Good to be here.
Awesome. So I met you at Athletes in Action Tough Camp. This was probably 2000. I did it 2 years. So it was either the summer of 2007 or the summer of 2009. And you brought in a ton of runners from Mason High School in Ohio. And yeah, we had a good time.
Yep. They're still going there. Still
awesome. Excellent. So one of the first kind of like moments that I had with you, like, so I'm a college student at the time, and I'm like, what is this like older guy doing here? I'm like, this is going to be a weird thing. Like, we're all just hanging out in the van. I think we're at like a hotel. We're just waiting to get onto Hope College campus. And we're just listening to the radio, and Teenage Wasteland comes on, and you start like singing the lyrics, and I'm like, oh, all right, this guy's pretty cool. All right. And I was like, all right, this is going to be a good camp. This is awesome. And, to go from that to like, oh, wow. Oh, I don't want to give your bio for you, but, running at Penn State, I'm like, oh, wow, I'm finding more about you. And I'm like, this guy knows some stuff. So fast forward, here we are, a bunch of years later. And I've been following, your high school program a little bit on and off throughout the years, and following some of your runners, Zach Wills, for example. I followed him when he was at Oklahoma State. And yeah, so I'm here to kind of pick your brain a little bit. I've been coaching a homeschool cross country and track team here in Dallas. This is my second cross country season with them. And so I'd like to hear about your coaching philosophy and some other things. So if you will, please give us a little bit more of your background, and we'll just kind of hit the ground running from there.
Okay. Well, I got into running like a lot of people did, because I was at best average at everything else growing up. And but I'm very fortunate that running wise, I had four great coaches that I would highlight. My first coach was at Trotwood Madison High School, just outside of Dayton, Ohio. And my first coach, my first couple of years of high school, was Bill Schneer, who went on after my sophomore year to Indiana University to pursue his PhD. And he became the head track and cross country coach at the University of Cincinnati for a good 30 years, probably retired, 6-7 years ago, maybe. Won numerous Coach of the Year awards with his program and on a league level, and not exactly the highest funded program at the University of Cincinnati by any means, but he was getting blood out of a turnip really well there with what he had. And I would say that Bill Schneer taught me to love the sport. He would drive us to different places. We'd go to meets to watch professional, well, back when they weren't pros, but the big time, just developed a love of the sport. When he left, there was another coach that was a former Trotwood runner, Dan Adams, who was an all-MAC runner at Miami University. And probably the two things, he was just a highly motivational coach for my senior year of high school. Convinced me that I could run through brick walls if need be. Also was really good at saying, no, that's enough. Shut it down. Let's come back tomorrow, because I became rather highly motivated. He also had a great spiritual influence in my life in terms of showing me what it meant to be a follower of Christ. And that's been a huge part of my life and my athletic life as well. Won a couple state championships in high school, and that led me to Penn State, which at that time was one of the top, I would say, more longer distance schools in the country. And I had the privilege of being on teams that it's kind of interesting. We just took it for granted we were going to nationals, and I realized what a big deal that is. I've gone to watch the NCAA meet probably 5 or 6 times over the last few years, as it's been at Terre Haute and at Louisville, and gone to watch that and realized what a big deal it is to actually get to run in the Division I NCAA cross country championships. And we just took it for granted. My 4 years there, we finished 12th, then 4th, and then we were 3rd twice. And that was great. I mean, that was just huge. We kind of, foreign athletes certainly dominate somewhat now, but back then it was like none of the, at that time, there was no professional opportunities. And so the very best Kenyans came to the U.S. to run college, as opposed to now the very best Kenyans bypass that and go straight to pros and make a whole lot more money. Back then, you know, we were basically running against the Kenyan Olympic team. And so UTEP being the main one there. And, and I didn't mind running against foreigners. My problem was running against foreigners. I was actually 17 when I started college, running against 23-year-old freshmen. That I had a problem with. And we hung in there. So we kind of kept our own American championship unofficial. I know some others. Wisconsin was that way. Colorado. So my senior year, we declared ourselves the American champions because everyone on our team was either was from Pennsylvania or a state that touched Pennsylvania.
Nice.
So we felt like we were the homegrown talent, and so we were the American champions, finishing third in the national championship.
Nice. That's hilarious.
You know, you got to figure out a way that you won somehow. You know,
Exactly.
Give yourself a trophy for figuring it out somehow.
That's right.
My high school coach was also, Dan Adams, was also very humble and realized that there were perhaps some other people out there that could help me as I was highly motivated. And I ran a 409 mile. That was in 1977. He occasionally would allow me to go. Well, usually whenever I wanted to, but usually once or twice a week, I would train with Bob Schul, who was training athletes at Wright State in Dayton, as well as the Air Force was sending a lot of their better talented athletes to the Wright-Patterson Air Force Base outside of Dayton. Bob had an Air Force background. And so it was great to train with Bob using the Igloi system, which is a little, if you're not highly motivated, the Igloi system is not going to work for you because it's very tedious. But it was helpful to me, certainly. And I think the biggest thing I gained from Bob is he was very meticulous and very scientific about things. He took a very scientific approach, and I began to appreciate that part of it. It wasn't just go out and be tough and run hard. There was a lot more to the game than that. And then at college at Penn State, my coach was Harry Groves, which I kind of liken in some ways to the Bobby Knight of college track coaches.
Nice.
So, and you know, for better or for worse, you know, he was of the opinion the toughest guy won. And I think I learned probably more toughness from him that sometimes you just got to tell your athletes, or tell yourself, if you're an athlete yourself, suck it up, get out there and deal with it, because this sport is not easy. And if you can't handle discomfort, you got no business here. And so all those coaches coalesced into, you know, the coach that I became. But my story's probably a little more convoluted than that. When I went to Penn State, I met Mary Raw, who later became Mary Rapp, my wife. That's why, I don't know if it shows up on the screen there, but that's why I'm using Mary's iPad, because hers works better than mine. She was a 3-time All-American. She ran in the Olympic trials. She has bragging rights in our home of having accomplished far more than I did. And she has some influence on my coaching somewhat today, because she hasn't really followed the progression of training and innovations over the last 30 or 40 years. But a lot of times she's like, that's a bunch of no nonsense. Tell them to just suck it up and get out there and deal with it. So it's good to come home to that sometimes. She sometimes plays that card on me too, which is good. I need that. So there's little influence there as well. And so I'm very appreciative of that. Out of college, I joined the full-time staff of Athletes in Action in their track and field division. Lived in Eugene, Oregon for a good number of years. And then eventually we took an overseas assignment with Athletes in Action in Barcelona, Spain. We were there from 1989 to 1997, which had us there during the 92 Olympics in Barcelona. The ministry and work that I was doing there was much broader than track and field. In fact, I kind of was away from track and field for quite a while. I hardly even knew the names. I'd heard about this guy from Ethiopia who was running fast times called Haile something or other. high league Everest Selassie, but well, it just wasn't the field world. Like things had moved into other sports, other dimensions. Moved back to the States, stayed with AIA for about 7 more years, and then just kind of out of the blue, I just felt led. My son was a freshman in high school, and I went to the high school coach and I said, "Hey, if you need any help, here's my background. My job is busy, but it's flexible, and I'd love to help out." And he opened the door, just opened the door wide open for me to help out, and I kind of got the bug there, and I realized that I did enjoy. I've always enjoyed teaching whatever. And in this case, I felt led to become at age 45, make a career change and become a high school teacher. I teach Spanish and I learned in Spain and become a coach. And so went back to school. I have my undergraduate from Penn State, and then I got a graduate degree in education from Xavier University here in Cincinnati. So kind of not the normal path. I just was talking with another coach the other day. I've been coaching. I've been head coach of our team. I think this is my 17th year of being a head coach. And I was talking with another coach from another team who, thinks I've been around forever. I say, "Yeah, you've been coaching probably longer than I have," because, they look at me and, I'm in my early 60s and they think I've been coaching for 40 years. I've only been coaching 17, actually. So a lot more people have seniority than I do and know a lot more than I do. But I guess part of my philosophy is keep learning. When I quit watching the podcasts and reading the books and asking the questions, that's when I know it's time to retire. Because if I decide to, because I've quit learning and quit innovating, then first of all, my teams won't be as good. And second of all, that just show that I've lost the fire.
So speaking of reading books, I was actually following your Twitter. This was probably 4 or 5, maybe 6 months ago. And, you were recommending a book specifically for high school runners. And so I picked this up and I was like, I got to get through this. At the exact same time, I was reading for the first time Running with the Buffaloes. And Jay Johnson is, one of the guys on the team that year. And so it was really cool to have that like overlap, here's this book specifically for high school runners written by one of the guys in this book that's following these college runners from the University of Colorado. So that was super cool. So that was one of the things that I was like, all right, I'm going to keep this handy just so I can mention that. I've recommended this to quite a few of my high school runners just because it's like, there's not too much out there that I've seen, at least, that's specifically written for the high school athlete. Like, hey, here's all the important concepts, let's say, not dumbed down or watered down, but just simplified so that it's directly applicable and specific, for the high school athlete. And it was a nice reminder just reading through that, like, okay, like, yeah, I probably shouldn't skip doing my, accelerations or my buildups at the end of, some of my easier days. Like I need to rev the engine, consistently. And I just like the way that, he kind of lays things out in a simplified manner. And I would not have found that had I not been following your Twitter. So put out some useful information, Coach. So appreciate that.
Sure. That you mentioned Running with the Buffaloes. That book resonated with me years ago. I wasn't in the sport coaching when it came out, but that's kind of a 1990s version of my college experience, minus the very unfortunate mishap that they have on their team. The tragedy, I should say, more than a mishap. But that was very much my experience. A lot of what went on in that book was a lot what went on in the 1990s. The University of Colorado was happening at Penn State in the late 70s and early 80s. And it really resonated with me. But I think Jay Johnson, the author of Consistency is Key, I think he's a good coach himself, but I think his real value is he is a learner himself, and he has connections to all the best high school coaches in the country and synthesizes a lot of things from them as well. And I think that's a real service he does for all of us. I've gone to his clinic in Colorado. I highly recommend that. The book is required reading for at least our highly motivated freshmen when they come into our program. And I give them a quiz on it. I talk to them about it. And all summer long, we talk about some of the things that are in there, trying to ingrain a lot of things that are in that book.
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic idea, just because, like, you can go into the sport of running and just do it and be good at it, but maybe like it's in spite of what you're doing. Like, you may just be naturally talented. You may just be gifted. Like, there were plenty of guys that, I raced against in high school who, like, they would stay up till, 1, 2 in the morning. They weren't really eating healthy. They may not have been training in any sort of legitimately programmed way. Like, it was just kind of like, like, there's times where, especially in high school, the coaches may not be, they may have run in high school. Maybe they haven't run in high school. Maybe like the team just needs a coach, and somebody's like, hey, I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'll do it, And so you show up and like, well, we race 3.1, for every race. So let's run that every day. Like, let's just get used to that. Like, so there's things like that. It's so nice to have something like this where, like it just kind of lays out the pillars, let's say, some structure, and it covers not just, hey, you need to run consistently year round, but, you need to know what a long run is. You need to know what tempos are. You need to understand what fartleks are. You need to understand what speed work is. And you need to be able to have a foundation during the off season, and you need to build on that, consistently over time. But you also need to understand that injuries are very often a part of the game, and you need to be able to read your body and understand it and know when to say, hey, coach, I think this is probably like the point where I need to stop or back down, and, things like that. So to have something like that you can implement for your athletes, I think that's awesome. So,
yeah, that's a great resource.
So let's talk a little bit about, like, if you could funnel your philosophy down into one sentence, what would that be?
Make them aerobic animals.
Awesome.
And that comes from, I was able to get some individual time on the phone one time with Dr. Jack Daniels. And my question was, he's got all the charts, if you're familiar with his running formulas, he's got all these charts. And my son, who I was coaching at the time, I cut my teeth on my son and the team at that time, which was a much smaller team and far less successful. But I kept asking, why does my 15-year-old son not fit the chart? Because it should be, when you are at a certain, I forget what he called the V dot, that it should go all the way across the line as far as what your capabilities are based on at different distances. And it was always skewed. And I asked him, why doesn't it fit? Because it seems like the longer the distance, the more he's off the chart slow. And he said, well, the charts are made for young adults, probably a 22, 23-year-old athlete. And he said that most young runners are going to need more aerobic development than they are speed development. And while Jay Johnson also makes a strong point of, we still need to make sure that we are turning things over and the kids can run fast, and I agree with that. it takes a lot longer time and is far more, and it's also, and I say it's not one or the other, but the fact that younger athletes are lacking more aerobic development than they are speed. And yet speed is flashy. I have kids come to me. I have parents come to me and say, should I get my son a speed coach? Should they do special speed training? And I say, no. That'll just overload them and injure them. We will make sure that they have enough speed. It's not about speed when you're running a 5K. It's 95% aerobic. And Jay Johnson points that out. And if it's 95% aerobic, then we don't want to forget the other 5%, but we better spend a whole lot of time at that 95%. And so one very successful coach of a national power team, years ago, one of our other coaches asked him, said, give me 30 seconds, give me your best. And he just said, speed kills. Now I won't go that far, but his point was, if you get too enamored with speed for a high school 5K runner, you're not giving the aerobic development the attention that it needs. And so, build it, make him an aerobic beast. If I had to put it down in one sentence. Now that doesn't mean we don't run what I would say extremely high mileage. I think we run what's appropriate. And we have all sorts of, even in my top juniors and seniors, we have a range of probably 20 miles per week difference, maybe 25 miles a week difference from the top guy, from one guy to the the one with the most mileage versus the one with the least mileage. So we try to learn what guys handle and give them appropriate, but just making that the main focus. If we can make aerobic beasts, it's not that hard to put a little speed onto that. And I don't mean that like tacking on the end of the season. I didn't realize this years ago. This was probably 12 years ago. So I'm still just kind of getting into my coaching career. And one day at practice, I said, we were doing strides after practice, after a run. And I said, you know what? I think we do strides a lot. We probably do strides, a fair amount. And one kid said, Coach, we do strides every day of some sort or another. And I didn't even realize that, but he was right. He was right every day. And that's what Jay Johnson says in his book, to rev the engine. And we do it every day. John O'Malley, great coach in Illinois. He uses this phrase, and we get our kids, I'll say, our feet are moving fast, and all the kids will yell every day. And I love that phrase, because every day we've got that neuromuscular, something's turning over, but we're not doing what I would call speed work. We're not out there hammering, 6-300s all out during ever. Right. But every day, they're getting an aerobic stimulus, and they're getting something that's a little quicker turnover as well.
Yeah. I love that. One of the things that I didn't really realize, until looking back, like, because as I'm reading through the book and just seeing how that differs from, some of the things that were discussed in Running with the Buffaloes, like they're spending the majority of their time just like mileage. And then, the last 2 weeks of the season, Coach Wetmore's like, all right, now we can actually work on some speed. And I thought, I was like, man, like that's so crazy, because that was just very different from what I was doing in high school and in college. But I was thinking back, like, was I doing some sort of speed work, in high school? And we would jog a little bit, and then we would do kind of our warm-up drills and some dynamic stretching. And then we always finished with a couple, build-ups that were working at least to race pace, if not faster. And I was like, like just about every day we were doing those. And that was usually while we were fresh, while we were still, we were pre-fatigue by a lot, because it was, at the beginning of the session. So I thought that was like, man, you know what? My high school coach, like he kind of had that baked into the cake just because it was part of our warm up. And it was one of those things that I appreciated looking back. At the time, I had no idea, just this is what everyone does. So,
right.
That's what you do.
Yeah.
So what are some of the other pillars or priorities that you focus on in order to make your athletes, these aerobic animals?
Well, two things is we spend a lot of time doing we call them E2s, essential exercises, because I don't want them to think they're extras. That's why we're calling them essential, and that's what Jay Johnson calls building the chassis. That we spend a lot of time with various core routines, warm up, lunges, leg swings, some of it more flexibility, some of it more strength. I kind of work with a lot of, I'm not a physiologist, but it seems in everything that I read, they talk about a lot of injuries are, they might be in the knees or somewhere else, but they start in the hips and the glutes. And we've tried to even, it seems like a lot of teams, you have two kinds of kids on the team. You have kids that are athletes who decide to be runners, and then you have kids who can't do anything else but run. and both of them can be very, very good.
Sure.
But I took to a couple years ago doing my best to not call my kids runners, but call them athletes. Just changing my vocabulary and do some things. And I try to instill in them, we are trying to make you athletic. You need to be more athletic than what you are, even if you're pretty athletic. Let's get more athletic, because if you're more athletic, you're going to be less injury prone. You're going to have all the little nuances of all the muscle groups, the little weak ones that don't get used and the other ones that get overused. And so we do a functional mobility screen with our strength coach, trying to identify some issues. But yeah, we spend, I mean, it's probably somewhere every day. I'll bet we spend somewhere between 40 to 50, 55 minutes a day, not running, but doing what we need to be healthy to run. So that's a key. The other key is the long run. For us, we'll go, our longest guys, long run will be about 85 minutes. I had an athlete years ago. He was pretty talented. His senior year track season, he was a mess. He had allergy issues. He had stomach issues. He had leg issues. But somehow every week we were managed to get him at least his long run in. And, it was probably, 11 to 12 miles. And every week we were able to at least get that in. And, he had some other workouts and all, but it wasn't smooth. It wasn't easy. There was always like, oh man, today, and he was pretty tough. He was competitive. I don't think he was being wimpy or anything. It's just kind of the way his body was. Well, he wound up state runner up in the 3,200 meters in Division I. So he turned out to be, wound up running some great races at the end of the season. And I'm convinced that, had it been the other way where, okay, we were able to get him through a set of 8 or 12 400s every week, or we were able to get him a track work, but, his long run, was just for some reason he would fall apart after 5 or 6 miles. I don't think we'd have had the same result. So again, that aerobic development. When I'm trying to lay out a week, and if it looks like due to weather, due to travel, due to meet, something's got to go. It might have to be the long run, but rarely, and it kills me when it is. I don't want to give that.
So how are you doing that once a week? Are you doing that once every 10 days, once every 2 weeks? Or does it vary, or do you kind of have a set schedule there?
It's pretty much once a week. We run mostly a weekly schedule. Now we don't race every week. Our top guys, we will only race 4 or 5 times. We have in Ohio, we have almost everyone has their league championship, then a district, regional, state. The league is a stand-alone meet. The district is the first round of qualifying. So the district, then the regional, and then the state. So those are qualifiers. So that's the last 4 weeks of the season, and we have 4 highly competitive meets. So I want my top guys hungry and excited to race those last 4 races. And so we race them starting in late August, about every other week. It kind of plays out this year. It's kind of played out 2 weeks in a row and then a week off, then 2 weeks in a row and then a week off. So when we get the week off, then we can play with things a little bit more. And when we've got a race week, we don't have as much wiggle room in terms of what we put where, what type of workout we put where in the week.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. So that was one of the things. I don't remember. Like I really was not aware of what I was doing as a high school athlete in cross country. Like I don't know if I did a weekly long run. If I did, it was probably 5 or 6 miles max. Like that was probably like, that's just kind of the way it was. It wasn't until I started doing some training during the summer and winter, or like the off season with Miami Valley Track Club with a guy named Vince Peters, who trained with Bob Scholl.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
So, I got to train with him. I got to go on my first 10 miler, and I was like, what is this? People do this? This is insane. And then, I'm training with Sam Borchers, who ends up being, D3 state champ in cross and multiple time state champ in track as well, sets the state record in the 800 and I think the 1600 as well. And so I was like, oh, wow. Okay. I should be doing mileage like this. Like, this guy's really fast. Like he wasn't prioritizing speed. He was prioritizing, that aerobic system. And that's, that made Sam a legit runner. And then, ended up going to your alma mater. So, that's one of those things. I don't know if I was doing, I'm sure I probably should have been doing longer runs when I was in high school, and I just don't know why I really wasn't. So that was a bit of a wake up call, let's say, when I got to college, and I was like, oh, we do these every week. Why? Like I finished.
Try coming from flat western Southwest Ohio and doing them in a Happy Valley. 16-mile runs in the mountains were a little challenge first year or two.
Yeah, so I finished my high school career finishing second at the state meet in the 800, and I was convinced like I don't need to be running far. Like I'm a half miler. Mm-hmm. And then cross country happens, and I'm like, oh man, this is a lot of running. But actually since then, I took off about a decade from running after I finished basically grad school. I was like, all right, I'm a strength and conditioning coach. Like I'm a sport performance coach. I can't be frail. Like if I'm going to be training all kinds of athletes in the weight room, I probably shouldn't look like a skinny distance runner who can't squat, who can't deadlift. So like I made this kind of like shift. Like, all right, I need to be able to do this. I should I'll still run, sometimes, but like I'm in the weight room now. Like that's I'm going to train middle and long distance athletes in the weight room, and I need to be able to show them that, I used to do what you do, and now I'm going to show you this, and this is actually going to make you better. So I kind of took this subtle, not so subtle shift away from just running. I kind of had lost a little bit of love for it. My plan was to always get back to coaching cross country and track, and then have basically within the past year and a half got back into it, and like I'm discovering a new love for the long run. Awesome. And it's love hate, but sometimes I'm like, man, it's really hard to ignore the benefit in total fitness that I see when I consistently hit, an hour plus running. Mm-hmm. I didn't want to do that in college. It's still, some days it's hard. It's here in Texas. So I'm in Dallas. The weather is rough for running here. Like it's not great, but I miss that Midwest, cross country weather. Like there's just, it was almost 100 today. So but still got a 40-minute run in this morning. So so that kind of brings me to my next question for you. So how do you consistently have a solid competitive team? What's your secret?
I don't know if there is a secret. A couple things. We have some great advantages at my high school. We are the largest high school in Ohio. So figure out of about 3,800 students, that would be 1,900 boys. 5 of them got to be fast. I just got to find them and get them on the team, train them right. But we're also the demographic fits kind of the typical. We're in an affluent area, high achieving athletes who are good students who have their parents have helped them develop a work ethic and a desire to be successful, and they have the means to do that. They don't have to get jobs to support their families, and so there's a lot of factors like that I'll be ready to admit that I have nothing to do with. I think we have built a culture of success. It's one thing to build a culture, and then it's just about as much effort to maintain that culture as it is to build it. It's real easy. Well, we get, our teams usually have been somewhere between 90 and 100 kids for probably the last 10 or 12 years. And a lot of those kids are out for a lot of different reasons. My friend ran cross country. I can get a PE waiver. Sounds fun. My girlfriend runs and told me I had to run, whatever. My mom kicked me out of the house and said I had to do something. And then you got kids that I just want to run as fast as I can and make a team great. And, those are kids that, I like to think that every kid is on the team because they just want to run as fast as they possibly can and make everybody else around them fast, and we go win championships.
Yeah.
That's a dream.
Doesn't always happen.
And that's okay. In fact, our mission statement does not have anything in it about running fast. It's about developing a work ethic, a sense of teamwork, and ability to perform under pressure. With the idea that if they can do that in cross country, hopefully that will carry over to other things in life where they learn to work hard, to put others ahead of themselves. And when it's on the line, they make that presentation and make that $1 million deal, or they get that job in that interview, or it's a tough family time and they have just the right words to say at just the right time, or whatever. So we've tried to make our mission statement transcend just running fast and winning championships. But don't get me wrong, I really like doing that too.
Yeah. Yeah, that's always fun. Yeah, winning is great.
Exactly. I tell you, we should be having a lot of fun running cross country, and there's nothing more fun than winning. But being really good at something and being a part of something that's really good, and knowing that you contributed to it. I think that helps. Again, we got all these bodies. We should be pretty good every year. It ebbs and flows like anything else. But I think a lot of it is that we have built a culture, and we talk about the older guys bringing the younger guys along. And, we've instituted more recently, in fact, this year, a lot more, some leadership training for our captains. And, how do they help with coaching? I also have a great coaching staff. We're very fortunate here that we have a number of paid positions. A couple of guys kind of, have been volunteers, but we have a good coaching staff of guys who care about the kids and understand the sport well. And they will help. I brought along, and our middle school program is phenomenal. And our middle school coaches, the main coach is, he's over 80 years old. He's still running marathons. His name is Wayne Wheeler. And he's the Pied Piper. His kids, he's like the grandpa to him in some ways, but he works them, but they have a ton of fun and they just love him. And, I've told him forever, I said, all I care about is that kids have enough fun and enough taste of success that they want to keep running in high school. You do that in middle school, that's, championships, whatever, that's wonderful. But as long as they have a great time and have enough success that they want to run in high school, then you've done your job.
Yeah, I think that's there's a lot of really good programs that where the coach, I think, is specifically built some sort of funnel for the younger kids to kind of feed into either their program or another program, where it's like you can begin to develop some skills and some foundation, but like if it's not fun, they're not gonna run later. Like it's got to be fun. It has to.
If it's not fun, I don't think they should. I have a couple guys that are so serious and competitive that heck, in the race the other day, I yelled at them to smile. They were trying so hard. Like run, let it happen.
Yeah.
So I try to remind them. I had this. I understand it entirely because I was so into it myself that I had that as I went in my career where I forced myself to smile during my warm-up strides. And it was forced smile. It probably didn't look very pretty. Wouldn't have been something photograph. But it at least relaxed me. And, I just read some physiology the other day about how smiling can relaxes your body and frowning or scowling makes it goes the other way. And that's neat that there's some physiology behind it. But regardless, I just did it because it's like, remember, this is a sport and sports are supposed to be fun. And especially if you're in school, it should be fun. And if it's not, then we need to think about how do we make it fun?
I totally agree. There's a time where like you're putting in serious work, but that doesn't mean the entire practice should be like no laughter, no jokes, right. no ability to just kind of, crack up and everybody like enjoys being there. Like there has to be some team chemistry and the ability to enjoy it for sure. So, so in your time as a coach, you've probably had quite a few of your high school athletes go on to compete at the collegiate level. So is there like some sort of protocol you've developed, or is there some sort of way that you kind of help guide some of your athletes towards running in college?
I don't know necessarily, other than I tell them that if you want to, anybody, an average high school runner and above, if you want to run in college, there's a place for you. It might be NAI or D3. I think our athletes see Division I football and basketball on TV and think that's the only college option. And I constantly counting the idea of, because we've had some athletes go to colleges that were over their head, and then we've had some college athletes choose some colleges that were just right, and they had a great experience, and the others didn't. So I really try to get them the idea, and most of our, especially we got some really smart kids on our team, and a lot of boys in particular. I just coach the boys. A lot of high school kids who are really smart, and they're boys, they want to go into engineering and some of the more technical things. And they think that only big colleges have those. And that's not necessarily true. So they think they can't run in college because I'll never make that big time college team. But I got to go there because they've got engineering or, whatever, biomedical, whatever, they have stuff like that. I'm like, well, you know what? You can also piece that together at a smaller college as well.
About half the guys on my college team at Cedarville were like electrical engineering, and they ran, and then almost all of them went to like do some sort of computer engineering, electrical engineering type jobs at like Wright Pat or for defense contractors, or like they had really good setup there. Like Cedarville had a
Yeah.
fantastic engineering program. So that was one reason we had so many guys on our team. So just want to throw that in.
Right. Because, most kids, if they're thinking, okay, I want to go into engineering, well, that means either around here, that's either go to Ohio State or University of Cincinnati. Like, well, yeah, great places, great engineering programs, but you know what? You might not be able to run there, but you could probably run it at Cedarville or someplace like that and still get, or a D3 school.
Yep.
So I think that's part of it. I think the other part is it's going to be pretty rigorous if they go off to college. And so I want to make sure that their body is built well to handle the jump in training and the additional stresses of college, academically, socially, et cetera. And maybe I try to sell the program a little, going to college, just telling stories about, my college experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I remember, I think maybe we were chatting at Tough Camp about one of your athletes. I think it was probably Zach Wills, and you were like, I didn't know anything about him at the time, and I'm pretty sure he was either a freshman or he had just finished 8th grade. Maybe it was in between his 8th grade and freshman year, and you were saying like, oh, he's gonna be really good. He'll be able to run in college. And I was like, wow. So like, yeah, that means you're probably just having him run tons, right? And I remember you saying like, my goal is to make sure that he is excited about running in college and to make sure that he is not overtrained by any stretch of the imagination. Like, I am not going to overtrain him in high school by any means. And I was like, wow, that's really smart.
No, you get that kind of talent handed to you. You just don't want to mess it up.
Yeah. I think there's so many high school coaches who would be like, all right, well, like, he's in my hands. I'm going to make him as fast as possible. I'm going to run him as much as I can. And then like, nobody ever assumes that their coaching or their training will result in a potential injury, right? Like, everybody's like, no. I know what I'm doing. Like, I'm sure it'll be fine. 100 miles a week, crazy stuff like that. Right. But I just thought it was very like no, he's going to run well. And then he'll be able to take the next step and he'll run even better because he'll be, his body will be that much more, mature, but not overused. Like, he'll just be prepared for it. So I thought that was, that left an impression on me like, oh, okay. So like, if when I get to the point where I'm coaching high school, I got to make sure like I'm not, running these kids ragged.
Yeah. I want to see. I don't measure success by how many kids go off to college to run. Mm-hmm. But if they are going to go off to college to run, I want to see them be successful there and excited about doing that. So.
Yeah, I think that's really important. So if you had a message specifically for high school runners, or let's say not just high school runners in general, like anyone who wants to improve in the sport of running, what's a message that you could deliver to them?
It is a gift from God, so enjoy it. I truly believe that as I get older and can run less and less. In fact, when I go out to run now, I used to go out to run to say, I wanted to see what I was going to do or whatever. And now I go out to run hoping I can run. It's like, I'm going to go see if I can run today. Because body doesn't quite handle it like it used to. So I think that gives me a little bit of perspective of it is just a joy to run. In fact, if you get out of line on our team, you wind up doing some push-ups. And every once in a while, why don't you just make them run more? It's like, no, because running is a joy. It is not a punishment. I mean, maybe if you're a football player and you weigh, 270 pounds, running sounds like a punishment. Push-ups probably don't.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
I've always, it's like, no, running is a joy. So let's not, it can't be a punishment. I just say enjoy the gift, the fact that you can propel your body across the surface of the earth all by itself. And just, I think of the millions and millions of disabled or elderly or ill or whatever people that can't do that.
Mhm.
And so no matter how slow I'm running these days or how much my knee hurts, I'm like, you know what? I'm still out here. And there's a whole lot of people who can't be.
Mhm. Yeah, you don't want to take that for granted. That's for sure. So let's shift just a tiny bit. So what are some things that you've learned, maybe from another coach, maybe from, just life experience, maybe let's say the hard way, that you wish that you could tell yourself as a beginning runner, or you could tell yourself when you were just starting out as a coach?
Well, coaching, there's a couple things. One, I mentioned these different coaches that had different influences in my life. I think it was probably my first year as a head coach, a coach of a local school nearby. We were just chatting, and he said, you got to remember that these kids are 16 years old and have a whole lot more going on in their life than you'll ever know. And so, Johnny blows up at practice or blows up in a meet. It might be he just blew up, bad day, whatever. But, and even in the 17 years I've been coaching, the influence of social media and just a lot of stuff that kids have to filter their way through and try to ignore and just can't. In many ways, just keep in mind they're 16 years old. There's a lot going on, and that weighs on them. Our strength coach has made a strong point of saying your body doesn't know whether it's emotional, mental, or physical stress. The point is your body knows that it's stress and it's going to react to it. Yep. And so we need to control that. Stress is not bad. It just needs to be moderated and controlled and put in that. Probably maybe a more technical thing I wish I had known when I was a young coach is I tried to make I wasn't a young coach. I was a new coach. I better say it that way because I didn't come into the sport young as a coach. Was the idea of I want kids to walk away from a workout feeling successful. And that means not hitting all the times or not running all the reps or cutting it off a couple miles short. Then we're going to do that because I want them walking away as opposed to saying, all right, we're going to rip through 10 quarters and you're going to average 65 on all of them and average 68. Well, their body still worked pretty hard, but they didn't hit the goal time. And so I failed today. And we got a lot of highly motivated kids that would think that way. So I think one of the big things, part of it would be that I wasn't good at figuring out, okay, what times do you think they could hit? If they were going to do, 8 quarters today, what times today? I didn't hit that very good. I wasn't real good at gauging that. And that's part of that's experience over time. But I think I've probably done more workouts, especially with your more veteran runners, juniors and seniors in particular, although other kids can figure it out let's run this how this feels. All right. The other day we did a longer run and there's a segment of it where we picked it up some. And I said, here are some times, this is the speed limit. You can't run faster than this. If you can hit this, great. But I don't want you to hit this if it takes you over 90% effort. So figure out what 90% effort is. And if you can run, if you can hang with the pack rolling at this, that's great. But if you start going in, if this is going to turn into some epic run of yours, then you need to back off. And that takes some maturity with your kids. You can't do that with the kid who just came out for the sport and thinks, you just hammer yourself into the ground every day and that's how you get better. but I think part of it is figuring out ways that they can walk away from a workout successful, even if, they didn't hit everything that you were initially thinking. So I guess in some ways I don't always put those time. I give them some ranges, maybe a little more than I used to. Let's hit, if we're doing a track workout, which we don't do in cross country. I have a strong aversion to doing track workouts during cross country. Some places that's all they have. That's the only place they can do their faster work. We are fortunate that we have a large park right across the street from our school. We have other places in Mason, great places to run. But I don't like getting on the track during cross country season. They get plenty of that during track. But just the idea of giving them ranges to hit rather than here's the time, hit this, and if you don't, that's not you're not doing what you're supposed to do. Try to give them a range, make them feel successful.
Sure. I think it's very helpful to remind myself sometimes, because I can get caught up in no, I programmed, these numbers, this is my goal. I need to hit that. And then, if I'm not having a great day, hey, I'm still applying a stimulus, and my perceived effort, I feel like I'm working really hard. And if I feel like I'm working hard and my body is struggling to maintain that time, but I can do this, I'm still applying a potent stimulus. I'm still sending the signal. And if I'm sending the signal, then I do what I need to on the back end, which is recover, then I'll adapt. And it doesn't matter at the end of the day if I was, doing quarters at 80 seconds or quarters at 83 seconds or whatever the case may be. I went out and I worked hard, and I can be, proud of the effort that I put in. I think that's such a useful, using that framework that you said, we're hey, let's set up this range. I coach athletes on calorie and macronutrient tracking, right? So in the same way that you have to have a budget for your finances, your body has a calorie budget. And if you want to pay for the cost of training and repairing the damage from training and then ultimately adapting, you need to know roughly how many calories your body needs and how much that costs. You can pay for it, right? So it's the same way where there's certain times, I've got an athlete right now. She's training for an Ironman race, and it was too much sometimes to keep track of, to have a set goal. Hey, you have to hit 2,600 calories every day. It was causing her too much stress, right? So I was hey, scrap that. You've got a range. We're going to go 2,500 to 2,700. Shoot for that. If you come in at 2,500, guess what? You're still 500 to 800 calories more per day than you were eating a year ago when you weren't tracking your calories. This is a win. You are way, way ahead of where you were. So I think setting up a range can be super helpful in that regard, especially for younger athletes, just so that they know, okay, I didn't hit that, I'm a failure. No. You just put in some solid work. That was an awesome effort. Great job. Let's try to replicate that and maybe improve a little bit next time. I think that's really useful.
Yeah, I had an assistant coach one time that was constantly saying work is work. And, I think we can get so caught up in as coaches in the nuances of this pace and this, I use the Tin Man pace calculator, and there's a lot of 15 different levels, of tempo and CV and threshold and, and all that. And that's great. I'm not so sure your body knows the difference between all of those. If you're somewhere in the ballpark, you're probably okay.
Yeah, because I think that's the thing. Like you can hit your numbers perfectly, but at the end of the day, it's a race. And like you said at the beginning, like it's probably the person who's got, who can tolerate the most pain, who's willing to be like, I'm gonna gut it out. I don't care if this person has a better VO2 max score than I do, or if they've put in more mileage than me. I'm gonna win. Like at the end of the day, you have to be an athlete. And so I think, yeah, like it's so easy sometimes for me because I come from this this background where, like, I'm studying biochemistry and exercise physiology, and like I want to look at the numbers and all that. Like, it's a race. You got to beat that person if you want to win.
Yeah,
you got to be the first one across the line. That's it. Like that's what it comes down to. So you can have the perfect plan. You can follow every single step that that Jack Daniels lays out, or that somebody else has planned out. You follow the Arthur Lydiard program. You can follow this program. You can do Pavo. Like there's a million different ways to run fast. At the end of the day, it's like, do you want to win? Okay, then you got to go out and you gotta prove it. So I think that's one of those things. So, so for anybody watching or listening, if they want to follow your team, or if they want to reach out, let's say they have a question for you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Probably just, probably I guess would email me, RAPPT at masonohioschools.com. Would probably be the easiest way. I got on Twitter a couple of years ago. My first tweet was, "Raps on Twitter, a sure sign the apocalypse is upon us." And I'm not, don't expect a whole lot off of there. I don't post a whole lot of stuff, but I'm at Tom Rapp 16 on there. That would probably be the two ways. Or you can follow our team. We have our boosters. We have great boosters too. I haven't mentioned them yet, but they do some incredible stuff for us. Just parents who just have bought in, and they have maintain a website, runmason.com. And they, from there you can find a schedule and a little bit more of what we're doing in terms of our activities. They put on. We just a little over a week ago put on the 47th annual Mason Cross Country Invitational, and it's a unique
hay bales and all.
We got hay bales, we got 2 creek crossings, we got some real cross country, and we get very few PRs on our course, and we like it.
You got to earn that finish.
That's kind of the way it is. It's got a couple of hills in it, which in our part of Ohio is hard to find. But we like to give a unique cross country experience. And a lot of that is thanks to our boosters. We got people out there working the whole week before. We got people whose like kids graduated 5 years ago, and their dad still takes, or their mom takes a day off work to come out and help prepare the course and do the work there. So
I saw a video of people driving around in a golf cart chasing off the geese.
That was me. That was the most fun. That was the most fun I've had in I don't know how long. I got there at 7 o'clock in the morning to set up the course on some stuff. There's this flock of at least 4 dozen geese out in this field where all our people are going to be walking, and geese in fields. And so I was like, I got to get rid of these. And so the assistant coach was with me. He was filming it, and that was the animal rights people probably on me for that, but we didn't run it over. They were fine. They all just flew away. They found some other better habitat. So
yeah, you're just clearing the area. Just move along. That was hilarious. That cracked me up. But yeah, there's not too many cross country races where you get to experience the legitimate cross country. What would you call them?
Our parks department too. We have a great relationship, great partnership with them. They do a lot. They actually get a backhoe out and do some excavating for us, so we can get safely in and out of the creeks and mow in the field the day before. They just do a whole lot of things for us. So they do a great job as well.
That's great. That's got like, I'm sure that when kids have graduated and, like 5-10 years down the road, they still have memories of that meet. Like, because it's so different. It's so unique. Like, like you can go run any golf course. Like, yeah, it was whatever, it was nice. But like, you're not running through creek beds. You're not jumping over bales of hay. Like that's some of the meets that I remember the most were like ones that had these giant awful hills, or like where we had to like go through this river like 7 different times. And it's like, like people are diving into the water just because it's like, like we don't get to do this anywhere else. Like some people go crazy with it, but like that's one of those things that makes it fun, is like, it's different, it's unique. So I think that's awesome. So where do y'all race next?
We are going to 2 places this coming weekend. The Culver Military Institute in Culver, Indiana. It's our overnight trip once a year. We get a charter bus and we load up 25 of our top girls, 25 of our top boys. We do it upright. They get dressed up and we go out to Ruby Tuesdays, but we make it look pretty formal with all our boys in ties and the girls in dresses. And
that's awesome.
And it's in the middle of nowhere, Indiana, but a cool place. And the first year we took our kids there, it's a pretty competitive meet on the grounds of a military academy. And as soon as we get onto the campus and they see kids wearing uniforms and all the military stuff, but they're looking around and goes, this place looks like Hogwarts. and it kind of does.
Yeah.
And it's just had the mystique ever since then. It's a great meet. Some great people put it on. The course is not anything too special other than the fact it's on the grounds of a military academy.
Yeah.
So we'll go there with our top 25. The rest of them will go up to Kettering to the Neil Charsky Fairmont Firebird Invitational, and they'll get a run in then. So yeah, that's where we're heading this.
Sweet. Well, I'll be following you all the rest of the season. Best of luck at your league meet, and then through the tournament. It's so different from the way that things are done. Like that was the system that I had in Ohio. And like here working with our homeschool team, we have the homeschool state meet. That's basically it. Like everybody is welcome to go, and it's run at the same course where everyone else runs, where both the UIL, the public schools, go through their state meet, and the private schools, which is TAPS. So that's the one awesome thing about running cross country and track and field, is like if you're running on the same course, like you can compare times. It doesn't matter if you go to a small school or a big school in high school or college. Like I ran on the same track. I ran on Jesse Owens, at Ohio State. Like that's where the state track meet was. Everybody else, whether it was D1, D2, or D3, like everybody competed there. Like for cross country, it was the same. So that's the one nice thing, is you can actually kind of have a legitimate comparison. Like, okay, how do I stack up against the big school division? How do I stack up against, the private schools? Or, like that's one thing that I do love about cross country. Like it's hard to do that if you're playing basketball or football, just because there's so many differences between a team that can barely. Yeah, it's true. It's true. So great. Tom, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. It's been so good to catch up, and I appreciate, your time and being able to pick your brain a little bit. And I hope it helps make me a better coach, and hopefully sometime
always thinking through what you do, and it helps you out as well. So it was a help to me as well. Thank you.
I hope that's the case, and we'll get you back on down the road, and we'll be able to discuss more fun stuff.
Sounds good. All right.
Awesome. Sweet. Alrighty, y'all. Thanks for watching and listening, and stay tuned for next week's episode. Adios.
Adios. We'll see ya.